Hello and welcome. My name is Katie Kozik, and I am the new fifth grade teacher at Rock Area Elementary School. I am so excited to be presenting this Rock Ed Camp session on digital formative assessment. So I will be talking all about different tech tools that you can use for real-time assessment in the classroom as well as online. I have left at the bottom of this slide my email so that if you have any questions or comments throughout the session, you can just pause the video and go over there and send me a quick email. I will also leave that at the end of the session on the last slide there. So what can you expect in this session? I will do a brief introduction of myself since I am new to the district. I'll then move into the importance of formative assessment. So why is it so crucial for our real-time planning, our instruction, and our student engagement, which is really crucial in this time of remote learning and in-class learning and any combination of the two. So why is it important that we use it regularly? And then I'm going to move into what I consider to be the most fun part of this session, which will be my top 5 digital formative assessment tools. And I will be giving tutorials on each one of the tools that I talk about. And I'll tell you about what you can do with each one of them, how you can set up the app or program in your classroom or online, and then also the pros and cons of each so that you can see when it would be best to use them and if it's a good fit for your classroom. And then, like I said, I will leave my information at the end so that you can send me a question if you're unsure about how to set it up after the tutorials or you need a little bit more assistance. Or if you have any comments or suggestions for me, I would love to hear from any of you. All right, so here's my introduction. My name is Katie Kozik, and I am the new fifth grade teacher at Area Elementary. This is my first year teaching. I just graduated from Penn State with my bachelor's in elementary and early childhood education and my minor in special education. Something that was really drilled into my program, though, was this use of digital tools and creating that digital literacy skills that students need when they enter into the real world. So I'm really excited to be sharing with you some of the tools that I have learned through my schooling, as well as the tools that I use during my student teaching. I should mention I also student taught during this past fall semester, so I miss the craziness that was the coronavirus and remote teaching this spring. But I did choose tools that you can use in the classroom as well as remotely. So either way, these would be really effective for your teaching. Formative assessment. So I'm positive that all of you know what formative assessment is, but I just wanted to give the definition so that we are all working from the same foundation here. It is the type of assessment that we use during instruction. So during our lessons, it's the way we are assessing our students, and that can come in the form of small quizzes, discussions, exit tickets, and they're just little snapshots of our students' learning and how they're progressing through a lesson. And these assessments aren't just crucial for our own instruction and telling us where we need to go with our teaching, but it's also really good practice for students to see how they're learning, the strategies that they're using, and how they're improving or where they need extra help. And it's really good for them to be able to assess their own learning that way. I wrote here, formative assessment is assessing the learning process, not the product of learning. And I think that is a really crucial distinction between formative and summative assessment. Formative assessment is looking at how students are learning, what strategies are they using, what misconceptions are they having, where are they really excelling, and it's not the product of their learning. It's not what they've learned, it's how they're learning. And I just think that's a really important thing to note. So right here, why? Why do we use it in our classroom? Why is it so important? And number one, I've kind of mentioned this already, but it helps us make more informed decisions about our instruction. When we know where students are in their learning, like I said, where the common mistakes are happening, what strategies students are using, we can better tailor our instruction to our students to fit the needs of our students. Number two, it helps provide really quality feedback to our students. So when we're collecting this data, it's the hope that we're relaying it to our students. We're letting them in on what we're seeing in their learning, any patterns that they seem to be making, good or bad, and helping them progress further. And then number three, it is great for increasing student engagement and accountability. So if you think about it, if we're making better decisions about our instruction and really tailoring it to our students, that means it's going to be more engaging for our students. They're going to want to be learning because it's made for them, specifically for their needs. And then also keeping them up to date with that feedback and letting them know how they're doing for each one of these formative assessments helps them to start taking accountability for their learning, and involving them in this process instead of letting them be kind of passive participants. Formative assessment for distance learning. So distance learning, remote instruction, whatever you call it, it has really flipped over this game of teaching, and it has made everything, I think, a little bit more challenging, and formative assessment is no different. It's really hard to collect that formative assessment when we're not in class, we're not face-to-face with our students. And so what I think is really important is that digital tools can help bridge that gap. They help build engagement with our students because technology is exciting for them, and it also can be used whether we're with them in person and instructing them in real time, or if it's when they're working on their own, so synchronous or asynchronous instruction. And these tools can work for both remote instruction as well as in the classroom. So no matter where we are this year, you'll be able to use these tools to help collect formative assessment from your students. All right, so these are the 5 tools that I chose to share with you all and to do tutorials on. Padlet, ClassKick, Socrative, Flipgrid, and that last one is Pear Deck. Let me move my video down, actually. That's Pear Deck. And I'm really excited to be showing you all 5 of these tools. They all have different features, different styles of collecting data, and are really beneficial for students in different ways. We're going to be starting with Padlet, which is a digital discussion forum that students can add to, kind of like a corkboard. So I'm very excited to be showing you that. So why don't we just jump right into that? All right, so like I said, the first digital tool that we're going to be looking at today is Padlet. So what can you do with Padlet? It is a digital discussion board, and it's recommended for grades 3 through 12. And you create a board that either has a question or an activity for students, and then you can send them a link to click or a QR code to scan so that they can join your Padlet. Once they're in your Padlet, they can then post responses to your questions or your activity. They can do things like showcase work that they're doing in class. Once you're on Padlet yourself and you're creating a Padlet, there are different board formats that you can work with. You can see in this picture, these are all the different style of boards. Just depends on what your need is for your students. And what makes Padlet a really great formative assessment tool is that you can provide feedback to students directly onto the board. So you can comment on their post, and you can have students actually comment back and forth, which creates a really nice online discussion. So what I'm going to do right now is exit out of my presentation so that I can show you what it looks like when you type it into Google. So here's Padlet. You would click on the first thing that pops up. And this is what the homepage looks like before you have an account. You just click this button that says sign up for free, and you just put in your email and you are set for your Padlet. You get 4 free Padlets on the free basic version. And if you need more than 4 Padlets, then you would just have to go back and delete an old one. This is actually my dashboard, and I have one set up. So this is what it looks like once you've put in your email and signed up. When you go to make your first Padlet, you're going to want to go to the upper left-hand corner and click the pink addition sign that says Make a Padlet. Once you click that, it's going to take you to the screen that shows you all the different types of formats that you can use for your first Padlet. They all have different characteristics in the way that they show student posts. And you can look at previews if you'd like. I know that Wall is very popular. Personally, I use Stream, Grid, and Shelf the most. I'm actually going to use Grid for this example. Okay, so here is a blank Padlet, and you can see on the right, Modify pops up right here on the right-hand side, and you can begin to make some edits to your Padlet. The first thing that you're going to want to do is change the title. So you can do this for, let's say, a reading class. You type in reading and title it that. Below, there's an option to put in a description, so you can describe it a little bit better, maybe what the activity is going to be or the topic that you're studying. Let's say you're doing an idea and key events. So you can type that in and students can have a better idea of what they'll be doing. And then as you scroll down, you can see there are options to change the appearance. You can change the wallpaper. There are solid colors, gradients, textures, and patterns, or pictures. I either choose something that fits the topic that we're doing or that is just a clean blank slate. This is a Blackboard background that I'm going to use. You can also add your own photo from your computer or from the internet through there. Then as you scroll down, you can see you can change the color scheme. the font, and then you move down to the posting options. And below that, it says attribution. And if you turn this on, it requires students to sign into a free Padlet account so that their name appears above each one of their posts. And I do turn this on so that I can just keep track of who is posting what. But if you want it anonymous, the board to be anonymous, then you can just leave that turned off. As you move down, you can see there are options for comments and reactions. Comments are what I was talking about a little bit earlier about that feedback and also letting students comment on each other's posts. So I do turn that on. And then reactions. If you enable reactions, it allows students to do things like posts, upvote or downvote posts. And personally, I don't think that is the most helpful form of feedback for students and can be a little bit more distracting than it is beneficial. So I typically leave that turned off. And then as you move down, you can see there's content filtering. And I normally turn on the require approval, and that means that I have to check students' posts before they go live onto our class board. So I do turn that one on. And then I just click next, and you can see that it says you're all set to start posting. So this is your blank Padlet board. And if at any point you want to change those settings that you made, you click on the little gear shift up at the right-hand corner, and all of these pop back up. All right, to make your first post, you're going to want to go to the bottom right-hand corner and click the pink addition sign. And a text box you can see pops up, and you can start to make your questions or your assignment for students. So let's say I have reading here. My title is going to be something like Chapter 4. And I'm going to assign them a task. So I might say, describe 3 main events from this chapter. And that is my post for my students. There are other options for how you can create a post. If you want to add images from the internet, you would click this little Google symbol. It's like a magnifying glass, and these things pop up. That's kind of creepy looking. If you want to do a video for students, you can record yourself. You can click the 3 buttons, the 3 little buttons right here, and these options come up. Film, it would enable your computer's camera and you could record a question. You could voice, you could have an audio recording of a question or an activity for students. These are all options that students also have to respond. So when they log into a Padlet, your Padlet, they have the same exact thing, a pink addition sign in the bottom right-hand corner, right here. And then they have the options, just like you did to create it, to type a title and write their answer, and then have all of these different options. Something that I really like is the draw option. So say I put a math problem in my task and I ask students to show me a strategy they could use to solve that math problem. Students can click the draw option and they can draw their math strategy right there. And it would save right to your board. So that's how students would respond, and they can use whatever tool that you specify that they can respond with, either draw, type, record a video. Just depends on the type of activity. Now I've created my assignment for students, my activity. So I'm going to go up to the share button, which means I'm going to start sharing the Padlet with students. I would use copy link to clipboard or the QR code, as I think they're the easiest. You can have students go to the link and then just sign in through there. Or if they are working from home distance learning, a QR code can be embedded into a lesson that you send home, and they can scan that and head over to a Padlet there. If you have a Google Classroom, this is also a really great option. So you can close that. Yes, so Padlet is a really exciting tool that you can use. You can see that there are a bunch of different options for the type of activities that you can set students to do. If you want to change the format at any point in time, you go to the 3 buttons at the upper top hand corner and you click change format, and all those options from the beginning pop up again. I told you I really like Stream. It puts all of the students' posts in a single column, which is really clean looking. And Shelf is also a really awesome option that I like. And I'll show you why. I just changed the format to Shelf. It puts all of your activities or questions in columns. So you can add columns here, type in a question into the bar, and then students are able to respond. So I can save that. So I'll just put question 1 and save that. And you would write the question, and then students can respond below it. And you can add as many columns across the board as you'd like. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. I'm going to show you one of the ways that I used the Shelf option. Here's my example. Okay, so I actually used the Shelf format to create a virtual Venn diagram. So in my description, I said compare and contrast butterflies and bees, and I created 3 columns, one for butterflies, one for both, and one for bees. And once you share this with your students, they can log on and all contribute to a class Venn diagram that you can later pull up on your Smartboard or Promethean board, or even if you're doing some sort of distance learning, you can share your screen and you can look at a Venn diagram that you've all collaborated on. And that is that version. So that concludes our tutorial on Padlet. I'm going to go back to the presentation so we can talk a little bit about the pros and cons of this digital tool. Okay, so the very first pro, it is great for online exit tickets, discussions, and review questions. You can see that it really is conducive to that kind of assignment or activity, but there are a lot of options that you can do with Padlet. Number 2, it's really simple and easy for students to use. You can see that there was just a pink addition sign and they can post away. All they have to do is click and write their name and whatever their answer is to the activity. And then number 3, you can respond with audio, video, or drawings. The different options to respond to assignments or questions really make this an engaging platform for students. The one con that I did list down here is that you do have a limited number of boards on the free option. You can go pro and pay for that, and it's unlimited boards, but with the free version, you only get 4, and then you have to start deleting if you need more. And that is the digital tool for Padlet. We're actually going to move on to our next tool, which is going to be ClassKick. Okay, so our second digital assessment tool today is going to be ClassKick. So what is it? It is a program where you can create virtual assignments that have built-in check and help buttons for your students. You can see that down here, these little raised hand options for students. It's recommended for grades K through 12. In the program, you can create assignments either directly in ClassKick, or you can import ready-made assignments that you have already. So if you have a PDF or a download of an assignment that you really like, you can import that directly into ClassKick. You use rosters for each class or block so that students can access the work through just a class code. And when students are working, they can type, draw, or insert images to complete their work. What makes ClassKick so great for formative assessment, though, is that you are able to check students' work as they complete it and help students who are struggling because of these really helpful help and check buttons. What I'm going to do is click the link to ClassKick and give you a quick tutorial on how you can use this program. Okay, so once you sign up for a free ClassKick account, you're going to be taken to a dashboard that looks something like this. And what I'm going to do is just give you kind of a tour of ClassKick, and then I'll show you how you can create a quick assignment and then assign that to a roster. So let's start this tour. You can see right here, I have a couple of example assignments that I made. On the left-hand side, you can see some tabs. I'm in the assignment tab right now. There's the rosters, notifications, and your profile, and then a few other tabs that you can look at there. What I want to do right now is actually click on this grammar work example of an assignment and show you what it looks like in the Edit tab. So when you click on it, it takes you directly to this Edit page, and you can see that you can add a title right here. You can add a description. Students don't really see this, but I added one anyway right here. Here are a couple other classifiers that you can click. And then also you can look at this access bar where you can change it from private to shared. Private only shares it with your students, but shared allows other colleagues who are using ClassKick to access your work if they would like to use an assignment or if you would like to use one of their assignments. If you look at these slides down here, you can see the assignment that I created for this example. If I click on slide 1, though, you can see that I have a toolbar up here that allows me to edit this page. So you can see I added a text box with directions for this piece of work. I added a little image. And then if I scroll through, you can see that I added some directions on this page just to edit this assignment and make it specific to my students. So you can see I added directions and also gave an example of what I was looking at for, I wanted them to cross off a word and then add it using a text box. If I head back to that original page, you can see that if I wanted to add another slide, I could just add using this little green button. If I wanted to, I could click these 3 little dots and I would be able to reorder the questions or duplicate this question or delete it altogether. Then if you come up to the top, you can see there's an Assign tab and a View Work tab. If I click the Assign tab, this is where I can choose a roster. I can either assign a different roster. You can see that I've assigned it to my fake Class A and Class B. And you also have some options here, whether you want it to be graded or not, if you want students to be able to help one another or not when they raise their hand virtually, or if you want to hide or lock the assignment. For each class that you assign this grammar work to, you would get a unique class code that students would go into ClassKick and just put this into their login bar and then add their name, and they would be able to access the work. And then the last thing that I want to show you here in this tour is the View Work option. And this is really where all the formative assessment gets to happen. When you click View Work, you can see it's Class A, this particular roster, and you can see all your students working on the assignment. If this were a live assignment, you would be able to see some highlighted slides where students were currently working on the page. Now, maybe the best feature of ClassKick is that raised hand button where students can either ask a teacher to check their work or ask the teacher to help them. The green is a check and the yellow is help. So if I have a student that's struggling with this, I can click on their slide with the raised hand. I can go to the raised hand in the upper right-hand corner, and I could type a message to ask them what they're struggling with, and they can type back to me back and forth. So you can see that this would be really great for distance learning because you're able to reach students no matter if they're in the room with you or not. I'm going to head back to this View Work page. You can also click on any student slide and just check the work that they're doing, toggle through how they're completing their work. I can also use this little button right here to choose another student for that same slide. So if I'm on slide 4, I can check all my student slide 4s right here. All right, I'm going to head back to my original dashboard because I want to show you how you can create an assignment from a ready-made assignment, something that you already have completed. So on this tab, I'm going to go to the upper right-hand corner, click the green addition button, and then click Create from File. I've actually downloaded a worksheet from Teachers Pay Teachers that I really like. And when I downloaded it, it is actually 28 pages, and I don't want 28 pages in this assignment. So I'm going to pick and choose the pages and the parts of pages that I want for this ClassKick work. So once I find a page that I like, let's say I want this page, I'm going to use this little drag tool to click and select the parts of the page that I want. I'm selecting all these problems. You can see that I left off the directions because it's kind of nice to be able to add your own text blocks with more specific directions than just this worksheet. I'm going to click Next. It'll add it as a new question. I'm going to click Add Another, and I can keep going through these pages until I have selected all of the questions that I want my students to answer. I'm going to maybe add one more page, something like this. Click and drag, click Next. When I'm done adding my questions, you can see them all here. I will click this bottom right-hand corner, the Finish button. Once I do that, it is going to take me to that edit page that I showed you earlier, where I can create a math review. I could add a description, but like I mentioned, students don't really see this, so this isn't necessary. I can decide whether I want it private or share it to other colleagues. And then I can go into my slide and make a couple edits and adjustments. So I said I wanted to add a text box with directions, right, the fraction, or the shaded portion of this each shape, something like that. And I could actually bring that up again, use the pencil option to do an example of how I want students to do it. It's a little bit hard with a mouse, but I'm still able to do it like that. Click an arrow, show students that that's exactly how I want them to do their work. And I can do that for each page if I would like. Add directions, add an example. So I'm going to head back to my edit page. And once I've completed making the assignment, I'm going to go up and assign it to my students. So all that means is I go up to the top, click Assign, and I go to this left-hand side that says Assign a Roster. I can pick from any of the rosters that I've already created, or I could create a new roster. And I'm going to type in a roster name. I'm going to call it Class D. Click OK. And it's assigned to Class D. And all I would need my students to do is to log on to Class Kick and enter in this code in their name, and they would be ready for the assignment. So that is how you can create an assignment on Class Kick with a PDF or downloaded assignment. Let's head back to this session here and talk about the pros and cons of Class Kick. And you can see I've got all pros for this one because I really like this digital tool. The first thing that I noted was it has a help and check button, which allows you to work with students who may be struggling in real time. Number two, it's really easy to import and edit assignments. You could see I could just take a ready-made assignment, make a few cuts and paste to it, and have an assignment ready for my students in no time. Number three, you can monitor an entire class during practice. So when you use that View Work tab, you're able to see how your students are doing, how quickly or slowly they're moving through an assignment. Number four, you can share assignments with other Class Kick teachers. So that option to share with other colleagues makes it really easy for collaboration among other educators. Moving forward, our next two digital tools are really simple to use, and they're great for quick and easy assessments for your class. The first one I'm going to show you is Socrative. Socrative is a program that allows you to provide quick and on-the-fly assessments to your students. It's a really simplified tool that you can use for multiple choice, true or false, or short answer quizzes. There is also a space race game option where students can work in groups to compete against their classmates. And you can also utilize their pre-made exit ticket format for quick understanding checks during lessons or at the end of a lesson. And then all of this data is collected and it's compiled into reports for you to analyze as a class altogether, or if you would like, it can be done on a more individual basis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this link, and it's going to take me to my Socrative dashboard. So once you create an account, this is what it's going to look like when you log in. You can see that there are 5 tabs here up at the top, and it always defaults to this Launch tab. This is where you are going to activate any quizzes that you want students to take, any quizzes, space races, or exit tickets. So let's start with quiz. If you click quiz, it'll allow you to choose from all the quizzes that you have made in Socrative. These are a couple of example ones that I created, and this World Facts one comes with Socrative. I'll show you how to make a quiz a little bit later, but let's use World Facts as an example. Excuse me. So after you click next and you choose your quiz, it's going to ask you to choose a delivery method. Instant feedback allows students to see if they got a question correct or incorrect, and also it can show an explanation if you provide one in the quiz. Open navigation means that students can skip questions and come back to them later. And then teacher pace means that students have to wait for the teacher before moving on to the next question. I'm going to click instant feedback for this one, and you can see that it suggests a couple features for different formats. This one suggests require names and show question feedback, which I like, so I'm going to leave it. And all you would have to do is press start, and it would begin, and you could start seeing results rolling in here. I'm going to click finish and head back to the launch page. Okay. Then there's a space race option, which is a really fun game for students. All you do is click on space race and you pick the quiz that you want students to compete on. I'll use World Facts again. Next, and it'll ask you the number of teams you want for your class. You can pick any number. I'll just use 2. You can have it auto assign who's on each team or have students choose. I always leave it at auto assign. You can choose an icon, and I like that. There's a rocket icon for Slippery Rock. And then whether or not you want a countdown. So you would click start, and then you would be able to see that students' teams are going to be competing to try and finish their rocket across the page first. And it depends on how quickly they are answering questions, but also how accurately. And you can see their results are coming in right there. But I'm going to finish this, head back to the home screen. The results would come up every time that you finish something. And then there's this exit ticket option, which is really great because you don't have to prepare anything. It is the same 3 questions. Question 1 is, how well did you understand today's material? And students get to pick from these 4 options. The next one is, what did you learn in today's class? And the last one says, please answer the teacher's question. So you can write a question on the board or project it, and then students can answer on here. And this is just a really good way to get students' opinions about how well the class went that day. So I'm going to leave that. The results would pop up here, head back to launch, And I'm going to talk about right here the quick questions, which I think are one of the most powerful tools of Socrative. These are if you're in the middle of a lesson and you would like to check students' understanding, or you have a question that you want the entire class to answer, you can quickly log on to Socrative, click the option that you want. You can ask your students the question in person or write on the board, and they can all respond here, and you can check the responses together. And that is the same for the multiple choice or the short answer option. It's very good for those spontaneous or on-the-fly questions that you want to ask students during a lesson. So let's move across these tabs again. You have quizzes, which I will come back to, but this is where you make your quizzes for Socrative. Rooms, if I click on rooms, it just shows the room name for my class. I've left it as my last name so that when students go to log in, this is what their login page looks like. They click student login and they just type in your room name. Mine would be Kozik. So let's head back here. Go to the tab reports, and this shows any previous quizzes or assessments that you've set students to do without logging out. Come back. Okay, heading back to reports, all those previous assessments that you had students do, you can check the data on those and export those results. And results only is highlighted when there is a live assessment happening, and you can watch results roll in real time, and then that's also the place that you would go when you want to finish an assignment and lock it, and there will be just a finish button in the right-hand corner. So let's head back to quizzes, and I will show you how you can make a quiz in Socrative. You click on quizzes, and you can see all the past quizzes that I have created, these sample ones. But you go to the orange button that says Add Quiz, Create New. Here you can title it. So say I'm doing an ecosystem quiz. I can scroll down and choose the style of question. You can do all true and false, all multiple choice, or you can do a mixture of all three. I want to do short answer questions, and I can ask a question like, what is the difference between abiotic and biotic features? Question mark. And I can have a couple of correct answers so that when students type it in, if they word it slightly differently, they still come up correctly. And I can also add an explanation if I would like. And once I'm done, I can just click the check mark and then come down and add another question. It could be true or false, multiple choice. And I can keep moving forward with my quiz until I have as many as I'd like. I'm going to put define and organism. Check. And like I said, I would keep going through until I finished, and then I can come up to the top and click save and exit, and it will be added. And then once I go to my launch page, I can click quiz, and my ecosystem quiz is going to pop up right here. Oh, I've made a couple, something like that. And that is how you could use Socrative. There are a couple other things that you can explore once you're on here, but that is a basic intro to it. Let's head back to this session and talk about some pros and cons of Socrative. So number one that I've marked here, it's really quick and easy assessment. Not only can you create quizzes in advance, but you can also use that quick question if you have an assessment that you want to do in the middle of the lesson or at the very end. Number two, it increases engagement with competition. That space race option is a really fun activity for students to work together on an assessment. Three, there are anonymous class results. So if you choose to turn that button off that says require student names, you can pull the class results up together and analyze how students are doing as a class. The one con that I did notice was many features are locked in the free version. So you might have seen there was a create a folder option for the quizzes, and that is only available for a paid version. So some features are locked in the free version. Okay, so moving forward, our next tool is going to be Flipgrid. This is another really quick and intuitive program that you can use in your classroom. It is a tool that allows you to create video activities for your students. And it has a very simple design so that you can use this with kindergartners all the way up through 12th graders. As the teacher, you create a video activity for your students, and they can respond to that activity with their own video. You can also provide feedback to your students, and students can have discussions with one another by using the comment feature or by posting another video. So let's head on over, and I'm going to show you how you can set up your first grid and also how you can create an assignment for your students and share it with them. I can X out of this page very quickly. There we go. Okay, so once you set up an account, this is what your dashboard is going to look like. Grid accounts are free, just like all the other tools that I've been talking about so far today. When you're ready to set up your first grid, you're going to come over to this left-hand side and click Add New Grid. Okay, so this is where you're going to start creating it. You want to make sure that you name your grid. So I typically recommend just looking at your name. If you teach a specific class, you can title it with that class in there. So I put Miss Kozik's math class. And then as you scroll down, you can see you can select the grid type, which is basically just how our students going to be able to access your grid. You can have students use their school email and make an account through there. Or I think the easiest way is by making the grid public and creating a password, which I'll show you on the next page. So after I click that, I'm just going to click next. And here's that password option. And this just adds another layer of security, especially when you have a public account for your students. I just make it and have it be my last name and the year. Click next. And yay, we've created our first grid. This is the link, this Kozik 1034, and that is what I can send students either via an email or attach it to my Google Classroom so that they can access our class grid. So I'm going to head over there. Okay, so this is your class grid dashboard. You can see the share button, which is how you'll be able to send your students the code. There's also this action button where you can edit your grid. You can also add co-pilots. So if you are co-teaching with somebody and you want them to be a co-creator on your account, you can add a co-pilot. You can also duplicate a grid. If you're teaching maybe more than one class and you need more than one Flipgrid, you can duplicate it. Then if we head over just a little bit more, there is the Edit Grid pencil. If I click that, I have a bunch of different options on settings for my entire class grid. So let's scroll through some of those. You can see here's my password that I can change here if I ever want to do that. Currently, my grid is in an active state. If at any point I don't want my students to be able to see the grid or access it, I would just have it be hidden, but I'll leave it active for here. This allows students to share their videos. I don't turn on captions because they are auto-generated and aren't always the most accurate. And then I leave grid followers off because I don't want students to get email notifications every single time a student in their class posts to the grid. Okay, so as I scroll down, you can see that I can personalize the screensaver for my Flipgrid. You can add your own image, but I'm just going to pick something from here. There's different tabs that you can click through. I'm just going to use this one. And once I'm finished, I'm going to click Update Grid. And thanks. And I can always go back and edit this using this little pencil button, but I like this so far, so let's keep moving forward. Okay, so this is my dashboard, like I said, and whenever I want to create an assignment for my students, I'm going to add a new topic. So I'm going to head over, click that Add New Topic button, and here's where I get to start creating my video assignment for my students. So I titled this as my math class, so I'm going to do math example 1. So let's say I'm working on multiplication strategies. That's what I'm going to title it. And I'm going to create a prompt for my student, and this is where you ask the question for your student. So I might say, using the problem on the board, share a strategy for solving this multiplication problem, something like that. And then as I scroll down, you can see that you can change the amount of recording time you give your students. This just depends on whatever you assign them, how long you think they'll need to respond to it. I might make mine 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm going to click on for video moderation because this means that I can check the videos before they go live on our grid. And then right below that, you can see that I have all these options to add to my assignment. So I can add an image, I could upload a video for my students that's already made, so like a YouTube video, same right here. Or I can record a video for my students, which is what I'm going to do right now as an example. Okay, so I clicked add video and record. Here I am. When you go to record a video, you can see that you have a different option here for text, for stickers. There's a drawing option and also a whiteboard option. But right now I'm just going to record a quick question for my example. Hi everyone, we've been working on multiplication strategies all week. So right now I want you to use the problem on the board and share a strategy you use to solve it. When I'm finished, I press pause. I'm going to click the next button. And on this page, you can edit your video if you would like. To add more directions, you can click add more, but if you're happy with it, you can go ahead and click the next button. And this is where it's going to ask you to take a selfie, which is just for the thumbnail of the video. So let's take a quick picture. Great. Click next. Perfect. So now you've completed your video. You'll click the complete button in the bottom right-hand corner, and it will pop up in your assignment. When you've finished, you click create topic. And this is a really cool feature. It creates a topic code for you so that students can access directly into the assignment rather than heading straight to your grid. So it's just a little bit more of a direct way for students to get to the assignment. So you can copy this and email it to your students or your Google Classroom. Click all set, and here is the assignment for your students. You can see the prompt shows up right there. Here's the title. If you ever need to go in and edit, this is the button you'd use. And let's click on that actually really quick. So if I scroll down through the edit button, you can see that I can add a topic tip for my students. So if I want to recommend something for them to do or keep in mind, I might write something right there. There is an active status for my topic. And here are some video features that are kind of important to know for when you're setting up your assignments. You might want them to be able to have to write a video title for each one of their posts. So I leave that on. I turn off view count, and also I keep likes turned off because I find those are kind of distracting for students. I leave the sticky note option on and the editing option, as well as allowing students to reply because I really like that online discussion feature. And then I just keep it as the basic feedback so that students can post onto my grid. So once I'm finished making those adjustments, I can click update topic. Those changes will be made. And if I scroll down, this is where your student responses are going to start to show up. And all they will have to do whenever they want to respond to the assignment is click record a response. And they will have all the features that I showed you when we were recording my video. And what's really cool is they can use these text box, they can use the whiteboard, all of those features to answer. And that's how you set up your grid and how you would assign a topic for your students. So let's head back over, talk about some pros and cons. And I have just pros for this one because I really like this tool. Number one, it's such a simple design. So it makes it really easy for younger grades and younger students to use this. Number two, it allows students to plan responses. So I think that is a really nice feature of pre-made videos because we all have those students that don't like to be put on the spot, and this gives them a little bit time to prepare an answer. Number three, it does allow for student-to-student discussion, so you can watch how students are processing their learning by the way that they're discussing with one another. And then four, face-to-face connection. You can't beat the in-person instruction, but this is a really good way to still have a personal connection with your students with a video format. Okay, so before we move on to our final tutorial, this is my session code for this presentation. I'm going to hold this here for just a second, but feel free to pause this video so that you can copy down the code and make sure that you have that for your ACT 48 credit hours. Okay, so last but not least, our final digital tool is going to be Pear Deck. And this is a Google Slides add-on that you can use to create interactive slides in any of your presentations. It is recommended for 3rd grade through 12th grade. And what Pear Deck allows you to do is create those interactive slides or use one of their slide templates to ask students questions during a lesson. You are able to collect and show anonymous class results in real time as students are answering. And you're also able to embed these assessments into maybe presentations that you already have made, or you can create a new one altogether. So to show you how Pear Deck works, I'm actually going to go to a brand new slides. Okay, so this is my sample slide presentation. I just added it straight from Google. And what you're going to want to do to get Pear Deck is head up to the add-ons button, click Get Add-ons. It's going to take you to like their store almost. And Pear Deck normally pops up, but you can always search for Pear Deck in the search bar up here. It'll ask you to install it and just add in your Google email. I've already done that, so I'm going to head back to my slides presentation. and show you how you open it. To open it, you're going to head back to the same add-ons toolbar, then click Pear Deck, which will now be available, open Pear Deck, and it's going to come up on the right side of your slides. And this is the dashboard. And as you can see, there is a template library and also an Ask Students a Question option. So this library is where you would go if you want a ready-made slide that you can just edit and pop into your presentation. If you have a question that you want to create on your own, you're going to use one of these options. So I'm going to show you how to use these options first, and then I'll show you some of the template options they have. So let's say I am teaching a lesson. This is my lesson right here. And I've been going through some content and I want to ask my students a question. I'm going to click a slide. I'm going to type my question up here and I'm going to keep this really big for simplicity. So this is my first question. I'm going to click question 1. Depending on the question, I'm going to choose the type of response that I want students to have. So to say I've made this a multiple choice question, I'm going to click the choice option. And it's going to give me spaces to fill in the options for students to answer. So what I'm going to do is just make this really simple and type in A, B, and C, but you would type in the actual answers for your question. I'm going to click Update Slide, and it's going to add that to the slide with the question on it. You will notice that you don't see the question options on this slide, but the toolbar does come up. Whenever you go to present this lesson, students will see on their version of your presentation the options, and they're able to select then. One thing that you do want to note is that this toolbar, you want to make sure stays on your slide. Do not click and delete it because that's what makes it an interactive slide. So that's one option for creating your own question, but say I'm doing a different style of question. Let's say I'm asking students to plot the coordinate 3, 4. I can type in that question. I can go to Google, get a coordinate plane, and just copy and paste it into my slide. And then I want students to be able to plot that. So I'm going to click either the draw option or the draggable option. I'm going to show you the draggable one. It'll pop up. It'll give me different shapes for students to use when they're plotting the point. If you're doing maybe a map lesson, you can use this pin or a flag, but I'm going to keep it a dot for this example. I'm going to click that. You can choose the color. We'll leave it red. And then you are also able to choose the size of your draggable point. I'm going to make this pretty small, leave it like that, and then I just update the slide. So once again, that little tool, or not toolbar, but that bar comes up at the bottom of the slide to let me know that it's interactive. I'm going to leave that there. And then when students are on the other end of this presentation, they will be able to have a small dot to plot on the coordinate plane. But let's say you want to use one of their templates that are already made. You will head up to their template library, and you will be able to see all the different options that they have for ready-made slides. And they really do a nice job of creating different categories for each one. You can see they have some for the beginning of the lesson, during the lesson, and the end of the lesson. Those formative assessment questions would normally fall in the during the lesson portion. But as you click on that, you scroll through, you can see all the different options of slide types. So let's say I want to use this one. It is an agree or disagree question, and you can see at the bottom that it is a draggable. So it pops up in my slides. It says drag your dot to indicate whether you agree or disagree. I can edit this to say whatever I'd like. I can edit these to say whatever I would like, but students will get that small dot again and be able to drag it over whichever answer they want. If we head back to the library again, we can keep scrolling down. There's some really great critical thinking questions that are awesome for formative assessment. This one's great. It's a text question. Once that pops up, and it says, I observe, and it asks students to describe what they saw. At the bottom, you can see it is a write your own response. So I might be able to use this for a science lesson and edit this and say, what did you observe during our water investigation? Leave that there. And once again, you don't see the text box, but students will have that whenever they're on the other end of this presentation. Go back. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you will see that it has subject area questions, which is really great. It also has templates for the younger ages and things that kind of fit those standards a little bit better. But maybe I want to click on an ELA question. This is a drawing slide, so if I click this, it should pop up into my presentation. I can edit the directions, but this one says to correct the sentence. I could edit the sentence to fit the lesson that we're doing, but students are going to be able to draw on this slide. So I think you get the gist of how you would be able to add slides or create your own questions. What I want to show you now is how you present it and what it looks like from the student side of this. So normally if you're presenting a slides presentation, you use this button, but when you're presenting a Pear Deck presentation, you want to use the Start Lesson button. So I'm going to click that, and it gives me student pace, which allows students to work on their own, or instructor paced, which means that they have to wait for you to move on to each slide throughout the lesson. I'm going to use that for now, and it's going to create a code that my students can use. Okay, so it creates this code for my students that they can then copy, which I'm going to do right now, and they will head over to Pear Deck and click the Join Session button. So now I'm going to be going back and forth between the teacher and the student version of this, so I'll try to keep that pretty clear. But students will just enter that code that you created, click Enter, and it will take them to the very first slide of your presentation. It will ask them this question, and then here they are, and they will have to wait for you to progress throughout the lesson. So I'm going to head back to the teacher slide and click Start Class, and I can start moving through my lesson. So that's the title slide. Here's question 1. Remember, we made that a multiple choice question. You still don't see the multiple choice answers, but if I go to the student view, you can see that those answers that we created, they are now able to select on the right-hand side. So I can click an answer, head back to the teacher slides, and you can see if I hide that, there's an option for show responses. If I click on that, all the classes' anonymous responses are recorded, and you can pull them up and talk about them with the entire class. I'm going to hide these and keep moving through my lesson. So here's the plot the coordinate question that we created. If I go to the student view, they now have a dot that they can move to wherever they decide their answer is going to be. I can go back to my view, the teacher's view, and click show responses again. The same thing as before. If I keep moving through, here's that ready-made one. Keep scrolling. Here's the text box option one. So if we go to the student view and see what it looks like for them, you can see they have a text box that they can type their answers into, and those are going to pop up. Let me show you. Type in an answer. If I click show responses, they kind of come up in a text format, so you can look at them as a class. I could keep scrolling through. This is the drawing type of question. So if I go to the student view, you can see they now have an option to choose a color, choose a tool, and start working. So that's kind of what it looks like from both the teacher end and the student end. When you are ready to end a lesson, you can either click end here, or if you want students to work up to a certain point with you and then go off on their own, you can click these 3 dots and turn on student paced, and students can work on their own afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click end. I'm going to title this just as an example, save and end session, and it'll take you to a takeaways, which allows you to look at the data as a whole. I'm going to X out of that and head back to my presentation so we can talk a little pros and cons. So the pros and cons of Pear Deck. The first one is that it is a Google Slides extension, and that makes it really accessible for creating lessons. So it is always there whenever you are ready to use it in Google Slides. Number 2, the second pro, is that it has a student-paced and instructor-paced options. So if you want students to be able to work on their own, maybe during distance learning, or if you want to lead them through the lesson and work with them and talk about responses, you have both those options. Number 3, the editable slide templates are so nice because you are able to fit it exactly to your lesson. There is one con, and that is when I was first learning this, I found it to be a bit of a more challenging interface to use, but once you get it up and going, it can be, it's much easier to incorporate into your lesson building. So that concludes this session today on digital formative assessment tools. I want to thank you so much for watching this session, and I hope that you found some inspiration and maybe a few tools that you can use in your classroom this year. Don't forget to write down that session code that I showed earlier so that you can get your Act 48 credit hours. Like I said, I have left my email and also my Facebook, which is just Katie Kozik. If you want to reach out to me with any questions about the things that I've talked about today, I would be happy to help you in any way that I can in using any of these tools. Also, feel free to reach out to me if you have any comments or suggestions for me. I would love to hear from you. But like I said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.